Hi everyone, welcome to another video. Today I want to share with you how to make this ombre stenciled background. I'm going to be using some new Clair stamps. But first I want to remind you to follow me across social media if you haven't already. Those links are going to be down in the description box below. Also, while you're down there, you can subscribe to my channel, and if you enjoy this video, the thumbs up button always helps. I'm going to be using this stamp set today from Clair Stamps. It's called #single, and this is a little bit different from your normal everyday Valentine's set. This is more Singles Awareness Day. It's very un-Valentine's Day-ish. So I'm going to use that today to make a fun card. Now, I want to go ahead and make my background first. So I am making my background directly on my card base. Because I'm only using inks today for this, it's going to work okay. If you're adding anything like water or some very wet inks, you might want to go ahead and just use another panel and then attach that panel to a card base. Sometimes your card bases can get a little wonky. So pick and choose what you want to use on your card base. See if it's going to handle it and hold up to kind of the moisture that's going to go on there. I am using this stencil from the Crafters Workshop. This is brand new, and I am just going to very quickly make this ombre background. I am using my oval blending brushes. These are kind of my new favorite to blend with. They blend kind of like butter, and they're pretty easy to get through my stencils. I am using Memento Dew Drops inks for this, and I've chosen 3 colors. I like to start off with my very lightest color, and I like to put it through the entire stencil. I go heavy-handed towards the top, or whatever area you want the darkest in, and then I go lighter as I work my way down in this case. I like to start with the lightest because I like to put down a base color first for other inks to sit on top of and blend over. Then I'm going to go to my middle color. So my first color was Angel Pink. My second color is Rosebud. This is a very hot pink. And I start at the top again and work my way down. Then I'm coming in with my very darkest color at the very, very top. This is just how I like to do it. I like to start with the, again, lightest, blend towards the darkest, then I come back in with my lightest and blend everything out one more time. It kind of evens out the color tones, so if maybe you have a pink or something like I'm using here, that the tone is just off just a little bit, it kind of tones it to the rest of the image, and it gives this great, great ombre look. And you don't have to work very hard to get it because you've built up those layers very kind of slowly. It all works out so beautifully. There's a closer look at that ombre. You can see it's very gradual by doing it this way, and I just love the way it turns out. Now to take off that tape, I like to just pull it straight back on itself. Then you've got your back of your card nice and clean still. I did have a little smudge. If you get little smudges like that, either use a sanding block or a sanding eraser and just get those right off of the cardstock. Or you can also use a craft knife if they're a little deep and then go over it with your sanding eraser or sanding block. I also want to create another background for my sentiment. So I've got a background on a background for this card. And I am using this little heart kind of canceled out from the #single stamp set. I'm going to go ahead and build up a little bit of a pattern with this. And I'm using that little circle and slash through it to position my stamp each time I stamp this down. So I'm going to go kind of in a horizontal angle, I guess you could, or not horizontal angle, it'd be more of an angle going vertically. I am using Memento Tuxedo Black ink because I will be doing some alcohol marker coloring on this. You can use any ink that is alcohol marker friendly or whatever coloring medium you're going to use to color in your little images in this case. This is just what I happen to have on my desk, and it's what I picked up. I'm going to continue to stamp this very quickly. If you wanted to be really specific here, you could use a ruler and draw lines to create this background, but I like to just, again, use that little line that comes on the stamp that's already being stamped and just line up my image that way and kind of eyeball it. Excuse my head, I did misstamp one right there, so instead of starting this whole panel over, I just like to look directly through the stamp, kind of get close, and then stamp it down, and there I've got this gorgeous background ready to be colored in. Like I said, I'm using alcohol markers to color this in. I'm keeping it super, super simple, just using 2 different colors here and going very quickly. I'm starting off with a light pink on all the little hearts that I've stamped. I'm not doing any more coloring other than those little hearts. Then for a little bit of shading, just on the left-hand side, I'm adding the tiniest bit of a darker red. Once I have that in, I can come back in and blend the entire thing out with that lighter pink marker. If you enjoy just doing the red first and then blending out and not doing 3 different layers, by all means do that. That's just the way I like to color. Finally, I'm going to clean up all my little mistakes with the white gel pen. This makes such a difference, especially on super simple panels like this. Just taking that extra bit of time and covering up those little mistakes, it really helps a lot with the overall look of the card. So I just like to use a white gel pen and just go over any little mistakes that have gotten outside the lines. You can do a couple layers of this, so if one layer doesn't cover it up, especially on a darker color that happens a lot, let that layer dry and then come back in and do another layer. You can also fix any little stamping mistakes that you might have with the gel pen as well. There's a closer look at that panel, and now it's time to do the sentiment. So for the sentiment, I didn't want to cover up the background very much at all. This is something I've been doing a lot lately, stamping on vellum and using that as my sentiment panel. So I'm stamping with Versamark Clair ink and Nocturne Happy Singles Awareness Day, and then I'll go ahead and cover that with clear embossing powder. This is one way to black heat emboss. You can do it a couple different ways. You can use black embossing powder. Just on this day, I really didn't feel like dealing with black embossing powder. It can be very messy. So I just chose to use my Versamark Clair ink, which is a pigment black ink, and then put some clear embossing powder over on that. Then I heat set that, and that sentiment panel was ready to go. I'm also adding the hashtag single sentiment from the stamp set onto this card. So I'm stamping that down onto some black cardstock. I have prepped my surface with the embossing bag, stamp that down with Versamark ink, and then again I'm using some white embossing powder right on that to help that show up. I'm stamping this on a very large panel, and I will cut this down into just a little flag banner that you'll see on the finished card. I didn't show cutting it down, but all I did was cut the strip and then cut an angle banner on one end. Now, whenever I put the sentiment on, the sentiment vellum strip, I wasn't happy with the amount of background that was showing through. So I cut another piece of vellum. I cut this one slightly thinner so it looks like 2 tones of vellum. And I'm going to go ahead and place that behind my sentiment strip. Then I just like to line up my sentiment right in the center and fold back both of those panels to the back and glue it on that way. I've got adhesive already on the back there. I did that with both of the little vellum strips that I put on. Then I can just quickly trim off the ends. But I really like the look of that double layer better. There you can get a little bit closer look at it. You can see that I've got that thinner strip of vellum behind the larger sentiment strip. Now finally, like I said, I've got that little hashtag single banner. Again, I just cut that down into a strip with my paper trimmer. I like to just go ahead and stamp and then cut. I find that easier than cutting and then stamping. Then I just cut one side into a little angled banner, added some foam adhesive on the back of that, and attached that to the left-hand side. I put the entire panel on a black mat, and then for that black mat, I'm going to pop up onto the card base with more dimensional adhesive, foam tape, whatever you want to call it. There's a closer look at the front of the finished card. I love this. It's so much fun, and it's very much different, especially if you're not into Valentine's Day. I'm married, and my husband and I, we just aren't into it. I know that so many people are, but we're kind of not, so I guess we're the oddballs out. Anyway, for the inside of the card, I'm just going to use one of the sentiments from that stamp set that says who cares about, and then it's got happy crossed out Valentine's Day. I'm using the glamorous Versafine Clair ink pad, and that finished the inside of the card. One more final look at the outside, and that is going to do it for me today. There are going to be links on the left side of your screen that you can click on. You can also subscribe to my channel over there if you haven't already. There's tons of information as well as all the supplies that I've used today down in the description box below. Thanks for watching today and happy crafting.